Hello, Gentle Explainer here. Today, I am going to gently explain a thriller drama movie called The Crush. At the beginning of the movie, we are shown a 28-year-old man named Nick, who is a writer and he has shifted to Washington due to his work. Now he is looking for a house, and due to this, he goes to see a guest house of Mr. and Mrs. Forrester, and Mrs. Forrester shows him the guest house, and Nick likes this guest house very much, and he decides to stay there. And then we are shown Mrs. Forrester's daughter Adrian, who is now 14 years old. Then Nick shifts to that house. Adrian is watching him from under the house with her friend. Seeing Adrian, it seems as if she likes Nick, and then Adrian sends her friend Cheyenne to talk to Nick. When Cheyenne meets Nick, and after meeting Nick, she comes to Adrian and tells him that Nick is very handsome. Now next day when Nick goes to work, his boss gives him the task of writing an article on a criminal named Robot. In this work, a writer named Amy also helps him. Actually, Amy is none other than Nick's friend. After this, when Nick is cleaning his car, Adrian comes there, and both of them talk to each other, and while talking, they become good friends. That same night, when Nick is working on the article on Robot, Adrian comes there, and then Adrian starts flirting with Nick. Now, Nick tells her about his article. Actually, Robot was a very famous criminal, so Adrian also knew about it. After this, both of them talk, and then Adrian goes to her home. Now, the next day when Nick is taking a bath, Adrian comes to his house. Adrian sees a childhood photo of Nick there, and she asks Nick if this photo is his. She can keep it, but Nick refuses because he had only one copy of this photo. After this, Adrian invites him to a party at her house and leaves from there, and then Nick takes his article to the office, and before showing that article to his boss, he reads it once. Then he notices that many changes have been made in the article, which he had not done. Then he shows the article to his boss. Then his boss is very happy, and he praises this article a lot. Now in the evening, Nick goes to the party at Adrian's house where Adrian is playing the piano, and then after some time, Adrian meets Nick, and she tells him that she had made the changes in the article. Hearing this, Nick gets a little angry, but then Adrian says that I just wanted to help you. Then Adrian takes Nick to a lighthouse because Adrian likes this place very much. Here both of them talk a lot, and in the course of conversation, Adrian starts kissing Nick. At first, Nick does not say anything, but then he realizes it's wrong, so he stops Adrian and drops her at his home. Next day, when Amy and Nick are together, Adrian comes there and Nick introduces Adrian to Amy. Adrian feels very bad seeing these two together. Once Nick is partying with his office staff, then, in that party, Adrian meets Amy. When Adrian is talking to Amy, then by talking to Adrian, Amy understands that Adrian likes Nick a lot. Then, after the party is over, she tells all these things to Nick. Nick does not react much on hearing these things, and he feels that all this is Adrian's foolishness. Then, while working, he finds out that his childhood photo is not there, and he takes it to the whole house. He looks for it, but does not find it anywhere. Then, Nick suspects that Adrian might have taken the photo because he had once talked to Nick about the photo. Thinking this, Nick goes to Adrian's house. Adrian is alone at home at that time. Nick goes to her room, searching for Adrian, and even after looking there, he does not find the photo. Then Adrian comes out of the bathroom, and hearing her voice, Nick hides in the cupboard of her room. Now, after coming to the room, Adrian realizes that Nick is hiding inside the cupboard, and so she turns towards the cupboard and deliberately starts changing her clothes. But after a while, when Adrian is not in her room, Nick takes the opportunity and leaves from there. But as soon as he opens the gate to go out, Adrian's dad is outside the house. Seeing Nick, Adrian's dad asks him, "What are you doing here?" Then Nick makes an excuse and says that I borrowed a book from Adrian and I came to return it. After this, Adrian's dad takes Nick upstairs and shows him his childhood bag, which he is restoring. During this time, Adrian comes there. Adrian's dad asks her, "Which book did you give them?" Then Adrian understands that Nick has lied to him to save himself from her dad, so she supports Nick and suddenly names any book. And seeing all this, Nick understands that Adrian loves him very much. Now the next day when Adrian is alone, then Nick wants to talk to her. Then he tells Adrian that we both can never be in a relationship because you are 14 years old and I am 28 years old, so we can never be together. Adrian, he hears all this and reacts very casually and looks at Nikki with seductive eyes. And she says that you kissed me that day at the lighthouse, and today when I was changing clothes, you were watching me secretly. Why did you do all this and you don't even love me? Nick has no answer to this question, so he remains silent and leaves from there. The next day, he brings Amy to show his car because he had renovated his car. As soon as he removes the cover from his car, he sees that someone has written abusive words on the front of his car. Now, seeing this, Nick gets very angry and he suspects that maybe Adrian has done this, and he complains about this to her father at her home. When her father asks her, she clearly denies. Nick does not have any proof with which he can blame Adrian, so he is unable to do anything and starts hiding the words written on his car. Then Adrian's friend Cheyenne appears there. Nick comes to the place because Sine had to talk about something important about Adrian, so she calls Nick to a secret location, and while they are talking, Adrian sees them together. When Adrian and Cheyenne go for horse riding, Adrian messes with Cheyenne's horse, due to which Cheyenne suddenly falls while riding the horse, due to which one of her legs also breaks. On the other hand, Nick is waiting for Cheyenne at the location where Cheyenne had called him to meet her, and after waiting for a long time, when Cheyenne does not come there, Nick starts leaving from there. But as soon as he turns back, Adrian is there. And then Adrian tells Nick about Cheyenne, and then after a few days, Nick submits the robot's interview in the office, but when he sees it, he finds out that someone has deleted that interview. Then, Nick comes home and deletes the interview. Nick checks his computer and finds the backup file of the interview, but his computer was formatted by someone. Then Nick realizes that Adrian has tampered with his computer, so he gets angry and decides to vacate the house. Then Nick sees a secret room in his house. After he leaves, he sees that there are many candles, and Nick's photo is under those candles. Seeing all this, Nick seals the room completely and changes the locks of his house so that Adrian cannot enter his house. After this, he again works hard and prepares for the interview. Meanwhile, Adrian messages and calls him a lot, but Nick ignores all this, and this makes Adrian very angry, and she gets very desperate. After giving the interview, he searches for a new house, and after coming back home, starts packing his things. Then Amy comes there, and they both get intimate that night. At night, when Nick and Amy are sleeping on the bed, Adrian is standing there watching them, and seeing all this, he gets very angry. Next morning, Amy sees Adrian near her car and tries to convince him. Then she tells him that you do not love Nick, you are just attracted towards him, and when you grow up, you will find someone else. Saying this, Amy leaves from there. Adrian also follows her, and Amy starts developing a photo. Then Adrian locks that room and releases a lot of bees in the room. Amy's condition becomes very bad due to the bee bites, and then somehow she opens the window and faints there. Then Nick also comes to know about this, and then during this time, Adrian also comes to her room and invites her to watch his horse riding competition. During horse riding, Nick does not come there because he is attending an event with his office members. Adrian gets very angry when Nick does not come there, and then she goes to the same event to meet Nick and slaps him. Then everyone starts looking at her, and then after that, Nick takes Adrian aside, and then he warns him, and then he tells him to go home. After the event is over, he also goes to talk to his new boss, but he does not want to give his house to Nick, now because Adrian has told them that Nick is a drug dealer. After this, Nick comes home and sees a lot of police officers there, and then the police catch Nick. Adrian and her dad are there. Adrian is crying there, and seeing Adrian in such a condition, her dad tries to kill Nick. Let's say that actually all this was Adrian's trickery and he had registered a case of child sexual assault against Nick. Then the police takes Nick to the police station. Now Nick tries to convince them that he did not do all this, but the officer tells him that his semen was found on Adrian's body. Actually, the night when Amy and Nick were intimate, Adrian had come there and Nick's semen was found on the protection thrown in the dustbin. Knowing this, Nick understands that he is in a bad situation, but Nick's boss bails him out because he believed that Nick could never do this. After reaching home, Nick packs his things. Then Cheyenne comes there and she tells Nick that it seems that Adrian's mental condition is not good. Once she loved a boy very much, and that boy rejected Adrian's proposal. And after a few days, that boy, he was killed by eating poison. But I suspect that Adrian himself did this. Then Cheyenne tells Nick that Adrian has a diary in which he writes everything. If you get that diary, then you can prove yourself innocent. But Nick did not want to waste his time on these things, and he tells Cheyenne to go home. After this, Cheyenne does not go to her house but goes to Adrian's house. Now, after some time, Nick hears Cheyenne screaming, and after hearing this, he runs to Adrian's house. Then Adrian sees Nick in the house and expresses her love to him by saying, "I love you." But Nick ignores her words and starts searching for Cheyenne. Then Adrian gets very angry and she attacks Nick from behind, due to which Nick falls from the stairs. Then Adrian's dad comes there. Seeing him there, Adrian and Nick both go to a room where Adrian's dad was restoring his swing. Then Nick sees that Sin is tied there. Then Adrian attacks Nick from behind. Then a fight starts between them. Then Adrian's dad comes there and he sees them fighting, so he starts hitting Nick. Now Adrian does not like seeing Nick getting beaten up and gets very angry. Then she attacks her own dad and knocks him unconscious. Then Nick punches Adrian, which knocks her unconscious. After this, Nick frees Cheyenne. Now Adrian is shown in a mental hospital where she is writing a sorry letter to Nick. Here Nick is with his girlfriend Amy, and he gets a lot of letters, and all those letters are sent by Adrian. Now at the end of the movie, Adrian gets a letter. There is a photo in which the doctor and his wife are there, and Adrian is looking at the doctor in that photo very carefully, because now she likes that doctor, and she has fallen in love with him, and this movie ends at this moment. Thank you very much, friends, for watching the video. If you want to see more such videos, then click on this video here.